guarantee it. X-ray it, right? Or load test it. But if I take a well that looks good, there's no evidence of rust in it, and I blow a hole through it and I put a bolt on it, what have I done? I've made it a secondary connection because my primary now is what? The bolt. Do I need to load test the brand new bolt? Yes.
What standard do you use for a load test? Where does that come from?
It's 100 pounds per square foot. And if you look on your documentation from Oregon, they describe the load test. And in some states they want double, not 100 pounds, they want 200 pounds per square foot. They want double. But if you're asking how do you determine, the engineer on a case-by-case basis, but the norm that we've used, that you'll see in a lot of our tests, it's a 30-minute test. You got 1,000 pounds that I got to put on a platform. You put, for the first 10 minutes, you put 40%. This was done by a group out of Engineers Northwest out of Washington. They're licensed in like 40 states.
Is that test in any kind of a criteria for testing companies or labeling or anything like that?
Yeah, a general load test is basically designed by the engineer who's going to basically look at the configuration of your fire.
The engineer himself
right.
determines what he's going to do for a load test.
Right. It's the standard is the same. I can put bags on a 4x4, which is 1,600 pounds of sandbags. I can put water bags, 1,600 on a 4x4. I can take the 1,600 pounds, put them on the ground, run a cable up, and then pull on this. There's many ways. Who determines how is the architect and you receiving? Because you're going to get the repair, you're going to get the load test criteria, and you're going to agree to it or not. You may even want to witness it. So on a case-by-case basis, but otherwise, the three norms are the same. And I have both here. I have cabling, and I have guys, moving around 50-pound bags. I'll show it to you. But it's between you and the engineer. We'll provide you the load test criteria. This an opinion, or is this a fact? Questionnaire. This is that confidence test. And if you read the questions, go ahead and click on. This is, if you go, again, this is a Seattle model that we helped build. So you can either get it from us, or you can go to seattle.gov and download the fire escape confidence test. They give it to you in PDF or Word. Take their name out of the top and just drop it in, and there's your industry standard confidence test. Modify some of the words a little bit better to fit, or you can use the one that we use for Lowell. We have a Lowell model. Next. The thing we liked, that we also work with Tacoma. Tacoma kicked in something that we liked, and we made it part of the deal. Okay, click on it. They have the annual test. You know what the annual test is? So we have a 5-year for the engineer. The annual is for the fire department or the building department that does the 1-year inspections. They want an annual. And the annual has 3 simple questions for the management, the owner, or the maintenance guy of the building. Bolts and supports look all right? Paint looks good? And are all moving parts, windows and doors working? And this is the best part. The firemen love this one. We always get a chuckle. You walk up to the building, it's a 5-story that has a gooseneck over, and you walk up to the maintenance manager and whoever, they say, hey, I'm here, I need that annual thing signed by you down here. He says, great, well, here it is. He says, no, I want you to go to the roof, climb over the gooseneck, come all the way down, release the cantilever, and hand it to me when you're down here. And what's the maintenance guy usually say to you? Are you crazy? And that's when they would either have a company. But that's the test. If he has no confidence in his own fire escape, and you do this for 4 years, and on the 5th year you do the confidence test, but every year you make him do the walk test. We thought it was a great idea. What Tacoma came up with, they forced the owner's involvement every year and sign something that goes either to the building department or the fire department. Next tag. Now this is the Oregon. If you go to PortlandOregonOnline.com, and this is fire prevention. They have what's called fire escape issues. Every issue they've ever dealt with fire escapes that were removed, that they need inspection, and they haven't. So we gave you in that insert, you'll see all the departments. So they changed the state code to reflect everything, including the tags, including an inspection report, including how to repair, including how to paint it. Even the bolts, they talk about what kind of bolts they want to use. Next slide. And what do they conclude in? A checklist. Because do they want opinions or they want facts now from their engineers and their architects? So this checklist is just going to make everybody step up. Now, if you're going to get an engineer that's going to freak out and say, this is not a state document, blah, 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 what do you do? Can you say, can you please answer these questions on your own letterhead? Isn't that the same thing? Right? If they don't want the form and they're going to play the whole, you know, where's this coming from, you say, listen, I need you to follow some industry standard questions. You want to use the Seattle one, or you want to use the Portland one, because that's currently the only ones that are online, used by a government agency. One's fire. I mean, actually, both of them are fire prevention. Okay? Next slide. Tags. On the back of your thing, this is what tags look like. Every city, every building in Seattle needs a tag. In Tacoma, every fire escape has a tag. Portland, every fire escape has a tag. In a lot of cities in New Jersey, everyone has a tag. Right? Where do you put them? 7 to 10 feet off the ground, and there's a picture showing them what they look. So if during an inspection you get your fire escape fails, you're going to get a yellow. If it's dangerous and it's going to get a red. Once it passes, it gets a white. And in the white has all the information, including the engineer who inspected it, phone numbers, and the next inspection date. But they're easily read 7 to 10 feet off the ground. I'm going to show you what they look like. Next, hit the slide. This right here is that document, again, that with the help of a state inspector that says, you know, generalize the departmental procedures and guidelines. So you can get one of these and modify it yourself. We'll give it to you in PDF or in Word, and you can modify it the way you want. Or we just basically take the top, put the code down here, and this tells you how the inspectors, whether they're architects, engineers, or inspectors, should behave. Repair guys, how they should behave, including a permit and a report that comes from this guy. And if you're going to paint it, there's a lead issue that you must address. Next photograph. In Seattle, the tag's got to be 17 inches long, 19 inches wide by 11 inches high. 7 to 10 feet off the ground permanently, and they have to be made of a solid encased plastic, or they have to be laminated. So that's the 3 colors on actual fire escapes. Next. This is another tag that we recommend. Again, 8.5 by 11, 7 to 10 feet off the ground. Next tag. Gives you all the information you need, including the company that did the last inspection, plus the most important, when's the next due date. Everybody now knows when the next date is. Go ahead. This is a fire escape that I think is either Waltham or I think it's Waltham. We inspected this fire tower, and these guys were using it up to the day we inspected it. And when I hammer tested, all those shreds fell. Okay, next. Next. We got rust. Not milk, we got rust. What do you need to grow rust? You need air and moisture. And in a lot of our expert cases that we've dealt with, metallurgists told us that it takes 25 years to grow a 1/4 inch of rust in a connection. You have to leave it alone for 25 years, give it a normal amount of air and water, and you'll grow a 1/4 inch in 25 years. How much you see here? Next. How much you see here? Next. Damage. Trucks. All kinds of things hit that. This is fresh from Winthrop. And is the Winthrop inspector here? No? Winthrop, we did a fire escape there near the ocean. And look at all the rest. So again, we try to save pieces. This is what you guys got. That if you paint this well enough and you caulk it, it looks like a repair. You know who's making money? Landscapers. Painters can't even make money on this. It's the landscapers acting like painters. Joe Handyman fixes these fire escapes now. So you know who's not fixing these? Iron workers aren't even fixing this. You know, because you know who got into the mix since you don't need permits? Anybody without a license. So if you don't need a permit, you don't need a license, the iron workers now got jumped by the landscapers and the florists and anybody that thinks they can paint the fire escape and charge $3 grand when you really need 18 grand to fix something. Got it? And so, as I mentioned before, this is the actual fire escape we took out of a building that was an elementary school. And we took it down during the Christmas break. Next. Next. Next, oh, by the way, this is Haverhill here. Haverhill. That's the, it's okay, you could have said something. That was the city hall. That's City Hall. Next, and that's, look at all the broke missing treads. I think that goes to the mayor's office up there. I'm not sure. Next. And now we're talking about Rusty. Now, the reason why we kept Rusty, and I've been at this for over 40 years, I've never kept a piece of fire escape because it's there to basically hold it together while you're taking it apart. There's actually more work than just hitting the torch on it and let it drop to the ground. So the slice and dicing that we were doing on this was just insane to basically save some of these small pieces. This was 4 feet across. I then chopped it so I could make it manageable and bring it to these kind of shows and then shrink it. So that's not the actual size. She was a 4-foot, kindergarten to 8th grade, second floor to the backyard, the recess yard for kindergarten to 8th grade in a private school. Next. I was showing all the abuse and what everybody does. Now, can you weld on anything that has lead? No. Can't put a flame. The EPA, the renovators license stuff, you can't weld. So now welding can't be done on fire escapes that have lead anymore. Welding was never an option anyway, but what did the guys do? Do you remove the rust or you weld the nose? So a lot of what we did on here is we basically bastardized this as more. So on the left side is the original bastardization. On the right side, we did some more bastardization to it to show just all the abuse that it's going to take, and welding was the cheapest answer. So whenever a painter got the job and something was falling, who did he call? The iron worker or the welding guy with the truck? The welding guy with the truck. Did he pull a fire permit? Nah. Next picture. So this is all the underneath. So you can just see the kind of abuse. So keep the rust, keep the old bolts, throw some welding on the nose. Next. And that'll hold for 1 to 2 years. Why? Because as the rust grows, what's it going to break? The bolt or the weld first? The weld. Welds snap, bolts stretch. So if you're going to wrong a client, the best thing you can do is not weld the nose, is leave the rust in there, change the bolt, because that'll give you another 15 years worth of stretching. So if you're going to really cheat a client, change the bolt, it's better. Or don't cheat a client at all. And would an engineer sign off on this? Sure. If he was aware? If you do all this welding and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you paint it and you caulk it, and then you bring the engineer. Is the engineer anywhere at this in the beginning, the middle, or is he usually at the end when the client walks into your office with the vendor's note that says, hey, a vendor fixed this, and you say, no, I need a professional examination. What happens? With a vendor, by the time the engineer goes out there, he's playing hide and seek. He's got a black fire escape, and anything that used to have gaps, what is in there now? Caulking. And what's he say? This thing looks tight if he climbs it. Because when you invite the engineer or the architect to go look at it, when it's dry or when it's wet? When it's wet, so you can just hand them the check and say, hey, you want to climb this wet thing? And what does he say?
No.
Nah. Paper. That's what's going on with that. Next photograph. So that's us, as I mentioned before, taking a piece apart next. So that's why Rusty's here. So after this, when you guys break, I'll be here for another half hour and I can answer any questions around Rusty here. Next. That's the before and that's the after of Rusty. So like I said, during the Christmas break, I only had 7 days to take down Rusty and put up a brand new fire escape on a private school. Next. Okay, so what I want to do now is I also want to talk about a big issue that is also a problem with Rusty. I also have an architect here that's going to help me talk about a project we're having here in Taunton. Is the Taunton inspector here? Bob Perosi? No? Oh, there he is. Bob, we're going to be discussing some issues that, in regards to fire escapes and their ladders. Now, this is an aluminum fire escape built, in my history of digging this information, there's a lot of these in Fall River, New Bedford, down in southeastern Massachusetts, Taunton, Middleborough. This guy used to have a aluminum siding business. And as an aside to the aside, he also made fire escapes. okay? So one of the things that we're having a problem right now is that these aluminum ladders are held with pop rivets, screwed with, 3/16 or 1/4-inch bolts and brackets to the wall. As you can see, not just the ladders, we're talking about the platforms. The platforms that should be 1 inch on center, the flats, they're 2 inches on center. The rails are not rails that are vertical or horizontal, they're 2-line rails. There's a top rail and there's I'm sure you guys seen a lot, and this fire escape always ends 7 feet. So Chuck Kramer, if you mind coming up here, I'm gonna have Chuck, we're dealing with a project on 48 Taunton Green, and the fire escape ladders, all of them end, 7 feet from the ground. How many people here have fire escapes in their area that end 7 feet from the ground? Okay, so we were asking Bob first, and Bob was asking a bunch of his friends in the area what it is. So we did some knowledge to find out what was the code back then when these things were built, and how did this 7-foot rule come into play. So Chuck, why don't you throw it out? He's a registered architect here in your area.
I did a little research, and I was trying to find where they allow jumping off of buildings. If you're up 7 or 8 feet, you have to jump down. And there's nothing in the code, and back to 1984, when I'm going to try to go back further, that allows jumping. All ladders should go to within 12 inches of the ground. So, this project that we're talking about, it's a 3-story building. The 3rd floor comes out onto a platform, goes down a ladder. In fact, that's the ladder that was.
But there was no platform, so.
Well, there's
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, correct
the
there.
3rd floor goes down to the 2nd floor with a platform, a little stair that goes across a roof with no protective railing. And this ladder was tucked around a corner. I don't know how anybody would know it was there. So there was no way to get out. So if they had a fire in that building, people would get down the ladder. Maybe they'd make it down this ladder, maybe not. I don't know if that can hold the 100 to 200 pounds.
Well, it is 12 on center, but it's not 18.
But it needs
So
to be 18
it's
inches.
supposed to be 18 across, this is only 12 across. So every ladder we're going to be seeing, pass or fail, that are aluminum ladders.
Well,
Now tell about the 2 lines. You said there was 2 lines specific that said, when you come down to 7 to 12 feet, and how did they misinterpret that? Where did the 7-foot rule come from that people abused?
Right, well, it says in the code that the top platform, or the bottom platform of any ladder coming off a building, ladder, fire escape, however you want to name it, can be between 8 and 12 feet from the ground. But then it also went, the next sentence says that you have to have either a cantilever or a roll down or some other means of bringing people to the ground.
Right, so fold out ladder will get you to the ground, because it folds up, looks like a drain pipe. That's how you get to the ground. This ladder, if it's 7 feet from here, you can have another piece of ladder on a cable and a weight, so that when you release it, it drops the rest of it down to the ground. So that's called a weighted ladder. You can also have a counterbalance staircase, meaning, at that platform, you can basically drop a full set of stairs with a weight on the back to the ground. So that's where, as you mentioned, this 8-foot rule or 7-foot rule, 8 to 12 came into play, and everybody just stopped at that one line and did what? Stopped it at 7. And a lot of this was break-in issues. So a lot of these fire escapes that are now going to be ending at 7 feet, that's a non-conforming. But is it grandfatherable based on can you sign off on these in the future?
No, I can't. I can't sign off on something, like I said before, there's no jumping in the code anyplace. I can't find anything. So it's an illegal application
Of the current and old code, yes, go ahead.
I applaud what you're doing, but there was an official interpretation back in 1993 that says that any building official may accept a ladder, and it has to go to grade level. That's number 1. And the reason that you have to, it says that the building official may accept a ladder. Let's face it, if a woman's on the 3rd floor, she's got 3 children, she's going to grab that first child, go down there, and she's not going to get back up on the ladder. So that's about ladders.
We agree with you. We have to accept the ladder, so we're not saying no.
The building official has the right, and he you can reach out the window and hand your neighbor, you know, a toothpaste, something, you're that close, and you don't have the ability to do a walkable set of stairs. Follow me?
Yeah.
So, actually, everybody in this room, if they're doing a sizable project and they want to say to the person, you need to put a fire escape from the third floor to the first floor, they have that right because it's a means of egress. Means of egress is never grandfathered in. Two things, ventilation and egress. Never grandfathered. So, some of the stuff here that's being said is, again, like I said, I applaud what you're doing. But some of it is a little bit, has been, I'll leave it at this, there's been official interpretation back in 1993.
Perfect. Just so, I think I know exactly what I think you're misunderstanding us. He's saying that if you have to put up a fire escape, the law requires that once you've exhausted all means of putting it on the inside, you are allowed a fire escape on the outside. The fire escape must be a full set of stairs coming out of a door, or you can allow a window, again, the city official picks. Once you get down to the bottom, if you have no room for a fire escape, a ladder must be accepted. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he may.
He may, I know, but
He or she may accept a ladder.
A ladder.
Let's face it, like I said, if you have this much room
Yeah,
between
we agree.
room and home, okay, a ladder is better than nothing. Would you really want it there? No, but you don't have enough space to put it there. So a ladder is better than nothing, to grade level.
right, you're talking new construction, and we totally agree. So this is not about no more ladders. You have the right to ladder. We're talking about we're talking about the maintenance of existing fire escape systems that have existing ladders, and we're finding existing ladders that are 7 feet from the ground, and we're speaking with the city official to say, in his interpretation, does he want to allow this to stay with 7 feet from the ground, or is as the code the only part of the code we were talking about is that the past code said always to the ground, but we're finding a lot of them 7 feet from the ground. We're asking, is that a grandfatherable issue, is 7 feet to the ground, based on your interpretation?
Grade level.
Grade level. So right now, every fire escape that is existing, so no new construction issues, this is not a new construction issue. You have ladders and stairs and fire escapes are still an allowable use when you've exhausted all means of putting the staircase inside. And believe me, you guys go through, you try to put them always on the inside, but but on existing fire escapes with a ladder end 7 feet from the ground, is this an allowable use? The answer is no, because it was supposed to be to grade. Can you modify this existing ladder to go to grade? The answer is yes. Another ladder on it can slide on it. It's called a slide ladder. When you release it, it guillotines down to the ground. You can do one that basically it folds up like a ladder, like a drain pipe. It opens up into an 18-inch wide. It's called a fold-out ladder. You also have the ones that have a cabling on this, and it brings it up way up there. And when you release it, it basically drops 2 to 3 feet per second and hits the ground. So what we're doing then on that particular case is our concern and question on not just one case, on many cases, is we have existing ladders that ended up 7. So Bob, on your question, thank you for bringing that point up. There's 2 parts here. There's existing and new, and ladders are still allowed on new on a case-by-case basis, and the city official has all the right on that one.
I feel like his point was actually that you can't grandfather an egress, and he was trying to bring up that he thinks that there was some interpretation in 1993 that says you can't grandfather an egress. Is that what he was trying to do?
Yeah, I think there was a misunderstanding on the whole thing, Bob. You want to clarify what you mean about the grandfathering of the egress? Or I think did we clarify the 2 points?
What was the question?
No, I was just saying that I thought that your point was actually that there was something in 1993, some type of an interpretation that says that there's no such thing as grandfathering in on egress. I thought that was sort of one of your major points.
There's
That
2 things that I'm
We have the
thinking
option
about,
of it.
egress and ventilation. So anyone in this room is a building official, and I see pretty much everybody in here is a building official, they may or may not accept the ladder. That's totally up to them because the big glitch was Boston's, because you couldn't put in a walkable set of stairs with grade level.
Right.
So that's where everyone in this room.
And if we can get a copy of that, if you know what that is and we can get it out to everybody
I
again.
wrote it.
And the last thing that I want to throw to that, is basically, that's great, you wrote it. If we can get a copy of that, we'll get it out to everybody again. If I may, there's also one other thing, which you mentioned perfectly. It's a size issue. If you're limited in size, the ladder comes up. But if you got the yard, you've got a football field for a backyard, you are never getting a ladder. You are never getting a spiral, right? You can't get a ladder and you can't get a spiral when you got a football field in your backyard. So when you have all the requirements, and while we have you here, there's also the setback issue. You have a yard where this fire escape is going to go and you have a 5-foot setback situation, and this fire escape is being built in that setback. There's also misinterpretations on the setback in that a fire escape is not an addition, so it can be built within the setback. Is that correct?
You can do an 18-inch
Yep.
fire escape.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Walkable set of stairs, which is 18 inches wide.
I think it's 22 or 18 or 22?
18.
18, okay. I'm gonna get a little bit more information. But that's perfect. But the main point here is that the ladder only comes into play when it's a unique situation, primarily in the Boston area where there's a lot of side-by-side situations. Otherwise, you get into a place where you got a football field in your backyard, you are not putting in a ladder, you are not putting in a spiral. Those are held for case-by-case basis, and the city official holds all the cards on that one.
The other thing that I'd like to mention is, you keep mentioning fire and health inspectors. They're not certified and they're not qualified to look at a fire escape.
They're not inspected, they can only cite a violation.
How can you cite a violation? The only way you can cite a violation is you have to have law. They don't have law. Can they go to the building code and cite the building code?
I believe when it's the health guy, he's asking for a copy of the certificate. When it's the fire code guy, he's asking for a copy of the certificate. When it's the building code guy, he's asking for the 5-year.
How does he get there?
Well, he sees a violation, rusty connections.
No, I'm talking about he has to go to the building code to get there. He can't cite anyone.
If I could, maybe I can answer this for you. I was brought in on this project, and we were talking about by the social housing authority. They wrote they walked through the building and they have a whole list of things that they wanted corrected inside the building, and they wanted a certification on the second means of egress. And that prompted the owner to come to me and say, gee, can you do this for me? And that's when I went to the site and we saw not only, that these were deficient, he's walking across the roof, he had to put a catwalk across the roof, he just went for a permit just recently. And is correcting all of these violations. So the social housing authority just has on their checklist, to business certification. That's all they were looking for, is a certification. And I have no idea when the last time these were looked at.
So what he's saying, just so that we understand that, South Shore Housing for Section 8 housing is asking for a copy of a certificate. They don't know whether the fire escape is good or bad. If you give him a document, he's not even going to go out and look. He's not qualified to say there's a violation. He may see a dangling thread. That just only helps him say, my God, you got a problem here. Where's your copy of certificate? He doesn't order one. I believe the health inspector is the same thing. He can only ask for a copy of a certification, which is standard. You're supposed to have a 5-year certificate. Your fire inspector.
How does he ask for that? He's going to the building code. It states it in the building code. It's under 70 CMR, 5 years. That's where it is. How does a health inspector ask for something?
There's one in here, I believe.
It's also general law, isn't it?
It's in the state statute.
I'm not the main code guy here. I'm just, guys, who's helping here? If anybody has the answers for him, go ahead, anybody.
The health code is what actually says you need 2 exits. In my town, a lot of times you'll see a health inspector will go to the building inspector and say, hey, I went to this apartment, I had a complaint, there's not 2 exits, and that's what kicks it in, that I can go and actually tell him he needs 2 exits.
Okay, guys, so, and I apologize, I'm not going to tell you how to interpret code, I bring guys like you in here in this room so you guys can help each other understand. So thank you very much. I think there's a health inspector guy here, but that's exactly it. Anybody want to add any more to give power to your health inspector? Because he doesn't cite violations, he cites issues. Good?
The housing code requires these are minimum standards for fitness for human habitation. It does require the housing guy to look at the means of egress. The metric is the building code, and what we do in our operation is that they're also authorized to ask for specialized inspectors. And it could be the building inspector, the electrical inspector, plumbing inspector, and they go in, and they can also,
And it's this little bit of confusion why we've asked Dan over there at the Federation to basically put a committee of all three associations to basically put a roundtable of people that are experts in the egress side of things to basically address this and come from the Federation a standard departmental procedures and guidelines for all of you. Because believe me, I'll tell you what I think, but a lot of times you'll just shoot right back that I'm misinterpreting some code, something. And I need help, so I don't know everything. I'm just basically dealing with I'm dealing with the bastard child of egress that has gotten no attention, no rewrites, no nothing. And it's not just an area problem, it's a nationwide problem. Do you have another question?
I think it's a general law. At least in Massachusetts, I believe this requirement is a general law, so anybody can reference the general law as a deficiency. Not so much a citation, but cite it as a deficiency. In other words, you don't meet the general
Right.
law, therefore there's a deficiency in the means of egress, whether it's in the state sanitary code or the state building code, or even the fire department saying you're deficient in this
Right.
situation.
The enforcement is building department.
The enforcement mechanism is through the building department,
Through the building department.
but the citation is in the reference law, wherever it may be.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions so far? So the biggest issue now, just to wrap up the aluminum side, guys, a lot of the aluminum fire escapes built down here that are 30 to 40 years old now, a lot of them are lag screwed into the buildings. A lot of them have a through bolt that's only ½ inch through bolt in some cases. When you go to one of these aluminum fire escapes, you see 6 lag screws. That's a great indication that it was never properly through bolted. The treads, the grating is all built with slats 2 inches on separation. So we have a write-up from a structural engineer that basically concurs that thing will not hold 100 pounds per square foot. It'll hold, but it was never designed back when. A lot of them were not even put in with a permit. They just showed up miraculously overnight. Anybody have any shoehorn fire escapes in their area? Because they show up. So we're just telling you that since we're now looking at these fire escapes, we'll give you the information associated with these fire escapes. They can be reinforced. So you can double up the 1½ inch angle underneath. By doubling it up, you're going to make it the minimum of 2 by 2. The grating can be taken out. You can put standard grating that you buy from McNichols, aluminum that will basically meet the code. You can fill in the space on the rails and there's a lot of things. You can change the ladders and make them 18. You can do a lot. Or you can just replace them with new metal fire escapes that are galvanized. Why? Because aluminum is super expensive and nobody really builds aluminum, but you still can build them in aluminum. But a lot of these aluminum fire escapes that you see all over the southeast of Massachusetts were never built to code, and a lot of times were built without a permit. But just to remind you, you can reinforce them. But a lot of times when you look at the mathematics, it's cheaper to put up a brand new fire escape for the same money that it is painted or galvanized. Okay? So we're getting close. We got a few more minutes left on this, and I'm going to open it up to questions so that you guys can either ask questions amongst yourselves, so that other people can answer the questions. But this class, I believe, ends at 10:30, correct? I will be here also to speak a little bit further on this, but if you want to throw a couple of slides in here. The main thing that I want to stress right now is what is a fire escape, what is not a fire escape. Quick, go ahead, keep going. And if you're going to touch a fire escape, the main thing you guys have to understand, try not to walk up a fire escape or walk down a fire escape for this reason, unless you have a 3-pound hammer with you. What we're going to teach you on these downtown walkarounds, and like I said, I will go to your city, we'll have a small 10 to 15 person training session, and we'll do a downtown walkaround. Next slide. This is at Rutgers University, a fireman's pole made for all your fraternities. The only one I've ever seen in the world. On a building at Rutgers University down in New Brunswick. Okay, so what I want to say to you guys here is, anybody ever seen a slide escape? No? There's one in Elizabeth, New Jersey. It's 12 stories high. Let's flick forward towards it. Let's flick forward. Keep flicking through. This is that. Guys, this is the main issue inside the building. When we load test a fire escape, it's for this reason. The fire escapes basically have water getting behind there, and what you don't see is what's rotting out. This is what's gonna happen when you start looking to do load tests. Okay? So I'm just fast forwarding, stop right there. This is a load test with the cables, where you have your weight at the ground and you pull down on it. Okay? This is one type of load testing, which is using cable, and then you use a load cell and then basically a digital monitor that tells you how many pounds you're exerting. Keep going. And we lifted the tail of a truck. Next. This is another one just done here in Cambridge, Massachusetts on a Harvard building. Bags. Look at all those bags. Next. Sandbags. Team of 5 all day long. Because everything needs to be load tested. Measurements. No deflection greater than 3/16. Next.
So now we're loading onto a stair, and we're doing a concentrated load of every other truck,
Heavy.
200 pounds.
Next. Dangerous. Does that buy any bolts? Does that buy any paint? No. Take that money, use it to refurbish this fire escape. Missing components on fire escapes. I mean, it just goes on and on. Keep going. Next. Keep going.
What's the workers' car policy like?
It just recently, because of a lot of iron workers were doing this, if anything over 2 stories, the insurance went up 5 times.
Do they have to be harnessed when they're bringing all those bags up there?
Again, if you're outside the fire escape, yes. A lot of times, depending on the area, you have to have a lift so that you're outside and you're bringing the bag. It's a very difficult situation to basically place bags and do whatever. It's just insane. There's no safe way to do it. Next. This is, I'm gonna fast forward and we're gonna end it on a couple of great slides for you guys. This is a fireman that fell on a fire escape, and we use this on a case study to show how rust grows. Just keep going through the, and this shows how fire escapes are made, what causes spalling, what causes, how through bolts works. I apologize that I'm flying through this, but this is only a 90-minute class, guys, okay? So keep going. This is a 1 inch of rust on a library in Boston. We're growing ferns. Barbed wire is not allowed on anything that has a fire escape. That's the detention center. A lot of times when you hit a fire escape, you blow the veneers. The real damage is inside. Cantilevers. Cantilevers, this is how they're supposed to work, guys. Stop right there. A cantilever is very simple. If I have a weight box full of my junk from my shop and it starts rusting, rust grows 5 times its size. It also grows 5 times its weight. What happens to my cantilever when this box gets heavy? Does it stay horizontal or go high? It's going to go point to the sky, right? So when the building inspector walks through my downtown area and my fire escape is pointing to the sky, you're going to write me a violation? What's the cheapest fix for it? Home Depot, buy a piece of chain, and you take a chain and you tie it here, and you tie it where? Anywhere. And then you make it horizontal. See this release arm? You know what that's for? It's called a release arm, so that when you release it, it drops 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground, and stays down. Here's an actual case study. Ready? A mom has on the 3rd floor, she has a fire, she gets out. Does she normally take the child and put him in front of her, or does she drag the child behind her? So the 150-pound mom, the 50-pound child walking down the fire escape, they get to that part right there, and there's a bar blocking them. The mom does what? Pushes the bar. That bar releases this cantilever that drops 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground, and stays down, because by the time she gets to the pivot point, the actual staircase is down and hits the ground. That's a properly balanced. She gets to the ground, she self-evacuates. 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes later, the fire department shows up. What has she done? Saved herself. The firemen arrive, and they need to get into her apartment because that's where the fire is. How do they get there? They use the fire escape, so it's made for egress and ingress, right? That's how they were made, and here's one as an example. And is it balanced with the release arm open? Is it balanced? If the release arm is open and she's still horizontal, is it balanced?
No.
So it's balanced backwards. The chain there is an indication that what? It's out of balance. So let's take the same woman now on the same building on a balanced fire escape that the owner basically put a $25 chain on. She comes down, she's 150 pounds. She gets there, there is no bar blocking her, so she doesn't have to activate. There's no single action requiring no special knowledge. She walks down with her child in tow behind her, and she steps out 3 to 5 steps. What happens?
Nothing.
Nothing. So she goes out 6, 7, 8, then what happens?
Crash.
Starts coming down, 2 to 3 feet per second or 5 to 10 feet per second? 5 to 10 feet per second, right? Hits the ground and shakes and rattles and rolls, and what does she do? Screams and yells, the child is screaming and crying now, and then she held on. She didn't get thrown off of it, right? She gets down to the very bottom of the cantilever and she steps her 150 pounds off of it, what happens? And who's behind her? So the child now gets ejected, the child holds on, and it's at the tip of the fire escape. Will the child's 50 pounds at the tip of a fire escape bring it down? She said, the mom is down below and says what to the child?
Jump.
Jump. The mom is sitting there screaming and crying, because the dad's asleep or still watching TV or something, right? But the mom is there screaming and crying, and then what does she do? In her nightgown and her PJs, and she's telling the child they won't jump. What will a mom do? Will she go around the front of the house? Will she bring her keys with her? Will she kick that door in? Will she break that glass with whatever she could find in the area? But then just by that time she's there trying to break in, who shows up? The fire department. And they drag her back to the alleyway. They say, what's the problem with my child? And the fireman gets underneath there and says what? And the child does what? Nothing. The fireman runs back to his truck and gets what? The pipe pole. And does what? Grabs the end. How many minutes? How many precious minutes have we wasted here? Are we fighting a fire or is this a rescue?
Hold up that long.
Pulls it down, right? The fireman pulls the thing down. The child reunites with the mom. The fireman puts his foot on the step and does what to his buddies? Tells them to start going up and fight the fire. What do we got now? One fireman doing what? He's a door stopper. He's a holder. Is that the correct thing? Okay? So, there's a lot of rights and a lot of wrongs. So if you want to get some additional training, we did an MBCIA class and we recorded the whole 4 hours and we have it online. So if you go to the .org, you can actually see the class. This class is being recorded. We're going to put this on the side. If anybody has any questions and they want to come up and look at Rusty and discuss further things, if you want a copy of this video, we need your cards. We need your information. If you want to give it with Katie, and we'll be glad to get you any industry standard documentation, Word documents, PDF documents, and you can do it all on your own, and you can have Katie basically create something similar to what we did for Lowell, free of charge.
Next one, yeah. What's the next one?
Thank you very much. I'll be over here by Rusty if anybody has any questions. Thank you. Thank you. What city?